When you decide to build yourself quietly, the first shift you must make is internal. Most people begin their journey by announcing it to the world, telling their friends, posting their ambitions online, seeking validation before they've earned any progress. But real growth doesn't begin with public declarations. It begins in silence, in that private space where you confront your own potential without needing applause to confirm it. Because the truth is, the loudest transformations start quietly. You don't build strength by showcasing your intentions. You build strength by honoring them consistently, especially when no one is watching. Silence has a special kind of discipline to it. It forces you to face yourself without distraction, without comparison, without outside noise. And when you strip away the noise, something remarkable happens. You start to see your life clearly. You start recognizing what needs improvement, what needs rebuilding, and what needs to be released. Most people avoid silence because it feels uncomfortable. But silence is not empty. Silence is instructive. And the people who learn to sit with themselves long enough begin to uncover solutions, insights, and truths that the noise of the world keeps hidden. Building yourself quietly is not about secrecy. It's about purity. It's about removing the influence of other people's expectations long enough to figure out what you truly want. Because the moment you announce your goals, you inherit the opinions of others. Some will doubt you. Some will criticize you. Some will project their limitations onto your vision. And without realizing it, you start adjusting your dreams to fit their comfort zones. You begin performing instead of becoming. You begin chasing approval instead of progress. That's why the early stages of growth belong in silence. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting what's still fragile. A seed grows underground long before it rises above the soil. If you expose it too early, it dies. Your personal growth works the same way. You strengthen your habits, your mindset, your discipline, and your character in the dark until the root system is deep enough to survive the weather outside. The world respects results, but results come from work that is done quietly, consistently, and often unnoticed. When you're working silently, you eliminate the distractions that come from performing for the public eye. You stop measuring yourself against other people's timelines. You stop seeking quick praise. You start valuing the slow burn of genuine improvement. And that slow burn is where real mastery is formed. Working quietly teaches you patience. In a world addicted to instant gratification, patience is a superpower. When you're not in a rush to show progress, you start focusing on building the right foundations. You learn to value quality over speed. You focus on internal changes instead of external appearances. And those internal changes, your thinking, your discipline, your emotional control, your habits, are the changes that pay the highest dividends over time. Silence also strengthens your self-trust. When you work privately, you are accountable only to yourself. There's no audience to perform for, no spectators to impress, just you, your commitment, and your progress. And every time you follow through privately, you build trust in your own word. That inner trust becomes the engine of long-term success. When you trust yourself deeply, you no longer need external motivation to move forward. You become your own source of momentum. And here's something powerful: when you build yourself quietly, people begin to notice without you having to say a single word. Progress has a way of revealing itself. Confidence has a way of speaking without sound. Growth has a way of becoming visible, even when you've done it in the dark. You don't need to announce the new person you're becoming. The new person will introduce themselves through your actions, your energy, your decisions, and the results you produce. So start quietly. Build privately. Strengthen yourself in silence. Protect your vision while it's still forming. Focus on becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to announce the changes, because the changes are too evident to ignore. And let this final thought settle deeply. What you build in silence becomes the strength you carry in every storm. If you really want to build yourself quietly, one of the most powerful disciplines you can develop is the strengthening of your internal standards, especially when no one is watching. Most people perform only when there's an audience. They give their best effort when someone is evaluating them, when the spotlight is on, when the applause is possible. But personal greatness is never built under applause. It's built in the unseen hours, the private spaces, the moments where you either choose your excuses or choose your evolution. Your internal standards are the expectations you hold yourself to, even when the world has no idea what you're doing. And the truth is, life will always reveal your standards. It may take time, but eventually your private decisions shape your public results. People can't see what you do in the dark, but they can see what the darkness made you. Jim Rohn often said, "Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better." But becoming better isn't something that happens overnight or in one grand moment of inspiration. It happens through the gradual strengthening of the rules you set for yourself. And the interesting thing about standards is this: no one can give them to you. Not your parents, not society, not your mentors. They can encourage you, but only you can decide the level at which you live your life. Strengthening your internal standards begins with honesty. Real honesty. The kind that requires you to look at yourself without excuses, without blame, without comforting lies. You ask yourself, where am I holding myself back? Where am I pretending that I don't know better? Where am I accepting a level of performance that I know is beneath me? These questions aren't easy, but they're liberating. Because once you become honest, you become powerful. Most people set standards based on convenience. They say, "I'll wake up early if I feel good," or "I'll study when I have time," or "I'll be disciplined when life settles down." But convenience is the enemy of growth. Convenience builds mediocrity. Standards build character, and character builds a life. To strengthen your internal standards, you must treat your commitments as promises, not suggestions. If you decide to read 10 pages a day, you read them, whether you're tired, uninspired, or distracted. If you decide to exercise, you do it, even if the workout is short. If you decide to work on your goals, you show up, even if the progress is small, because the point is not perfection. The point is consistency. And the interesting thing is, this quiet commitment begins reshaping how you see yourself. Every time you honor a private promise, you cast a vote for the identity of a disciplined, reliable, trustworthy person. And once that identity begins to form, your decisions become easier. You no longer rely on motivation. You rely on your standards. Motivation may come and go, but standards remain. Motivation is a feeling. Standards are a foundation. Another reason internal standards matter is because life will test you. Without strong standards, you'll bend under pressure. You'll fall into distraction, temptation, or the influence of weaker environments. But when your standards are internal, deeply rooted, self-chosen, and protected, no storm can shake them. You may slow down, but you won't break. You may feel discouraged, but you won't collapse. You may face setbacks, but you'll rise quickly because your standards demand it. Building yourself quietly means you don't announce your standards, you live them. You don't brag about your discipline, you embody it. You don't tell people your plans, you execute them. And eventually, people will see the transformation, not because you told them, but because your results made it impossible to ignore. This quiet strengthening is not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's not something people will applaud you for, but it's the very thing that will separate you from the masses. Anyone can talk a good game. Few can live one. And the difference is always found in the standards you hold yourself to when the room is empty. So strengthen your private standards. Make them non-negotiable. Make them personal. Make them sacred. Because once you do, you won't need to chase success. Success will recognize the quality of your character and start moving in your direction. There's a certain kind of growth that doesn't make noise. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need applause. And one of the most powerful ways you build yourself quietly is by cultivating the kind of patience that allows deep work to take root. We live in a world where speed is glorified. Fast success, fast results, fast recognition. But real transformation, the kind that lasts, doesn't happen at the pace of excitement. It happens at the pace of patience. And patience is not passive. Patience is active discipline over your inner world. Most people think patience means waiting, but waiting is easy. Anyone can wait. Patience is the ability to endure the process without constantly seeking reassurance. It is the ability to stay with the work, even when the work is slow, even when the results are invisible, even when no one is there to compliment your effort. Because the truth is, the most valuable things you will ever build, character, discipline, focus, mastery, they all grow in silence long before they ever show themselves in public. Patience is the builder's greatest tool. And if you're truly committed to developing yourself quietly, you must learn to trust the process more than you trust the praise. Praise is nice, but it can become a distraction. The process, however, is honest. It exposes your weaknesses, strengthens your foundation, and shapes your mindset in ways compliments never could. Think about the way nature grows. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. Half of its development happens underground, where no one sees it. Roots grow deeper long before branches grow higher. Why? Because nature understands something we often forget. If you rise before you're rooted, you fall. Patience protects you from premature success. It ensures that when you finally grow, you grow in a way that can withstand pressure. You grow in a way that lasts, but we struggle with patience because we live in comparison. We see others growing faster, moving quicker, achieving more, or at least appearing to. And comparison is the enemy of quiet growth. It convinces you that you're behind when you're actually right on time for your path. It makes you rush steps that require stillness. It makes you chase timelines that were never meant for you. The moment you measure your growth by someone else's pace, you lose your own rhythm. Patience brings you back to your center. It reminds you that real mastery requires time. You cannot microwave character. You cannot fast forward discipline. You cannot download wisdom. These are earned in slow, deliberate, intentional effort. And if you're willing to give yourself the time to develop, you will create a version of yourself that is strong, internally grounded, and unshakable. Now, patience doesn't mean you slow down your effort. It means you stop rushing the outcome. You still wake up with urgency. You still work with focus. But you no longer tie your self-worth to how quickly the results come. You trust that consistent effort, applied with discipline, will eventually pay dividends that impatience could never deliver. And here's what patience does for you. It sharpens your judgment. People who rush settle for opportunities that look good but cost too much. They sacrifice long-term gain for short-term comfort. But people who develop patience create a kind of inner clarity. They see beyond the surface. They understand that the right opportunity always matches your readiness. And readiness is something you build in silence. Patience also teaches resilience. When things take longer than expected, some people quit. But those who understand the role of patience learn to adjust, adapt, and continue. They don't see delays as denials. They see them as preparation. They recognize that resistance is part of the process, and they become stronger for having endured it. And the most important part of all this is that patience builds confidence. Not the loud, fragile kind, but the quiet, durable kind. The confidence of someone who knows they're doing the work. Someone who doesn't need to announce their progress because they trust where they're headed. Someone who doesn't fear the pace because they believe in the process. So as you build yourself quietly, be patient with the path you're on. Your time is not running out. Your progress is not too slow. You're not behind. You're evolving at the speed required for the person you're becoming. And the person you're becoming is worth the time it takes. When you decide to build yourself quietly, one of the most powerful disciplines you can adopt is the practice of strengthening your inner world more than your outer performance. And this is where the real work happens, deep inside, where nobody applauds, nobody records, nobody congratulates you. It's the private strengthening of your values, your convictions, your emotional resilience, and your sense of direction. Because if the inner world is weak, the outer world will eventually expose it. But if the inner world is strong, the outer world is simply a reflection of that strength. Most people spend their lives trying to appear strong, hoping the world will respect them for the image they project. But life doesn't reward image. It rewards substance, and substance is built privately. You strengthen your inner world when you learn to sit with your thoughts instead of running from them. When you reflect on your decisions instead of blaming circumstances. When you discipline your emotions instead of letting them dictate your behavior. That's the real construction project. Building the version of yourself that can handle success without collapsing under its weight. A strong inner world gives you something priceless: steadiness. You don't spin out when something goes wrong. You don't lose yourself when something goes right. You stay centered, grounded, anchored. And this steadiness becomes your competitive advantage in a world where most people are emotionally fragile, easily rattled by every inconvenience or setback. A weak inner world magnifies small problems. A strong inner world shrinks big ones. But inner strength is not something you're born with. It's something you practice quietly, consistently. You strengthen your inner world every time you choose discipline over impulse. Every time you choose growth over comfort. Every time you choose patience over panic. These choices seem small in the moment, but they shape the architecture of your character. They form the foundation that everything else rests on. You also strengthen your inner world by learning to manage solitude. Most people can't sit alone without distraction because silence reveals too much. But if you can sit quietly long enough, you start discovering things about yourself. Your fears, your patterns, your triggers, your hidden strengths. Solitude becomes a teacher, and the people who grow the fastest in life are the ones who learn from silence, not just from noise. There's another layer to this. Strengthening your inner world means cleaning up the internal dialogue you carry with you. Your self-talk creates either momentum or resistance. If you constantly speak to yourself with doubt, hesitation, or guilt, then your inner world becomes hostile territory. But if you speak with firmness, encouragement, and clarity, then the inner world becomes supportive soil, something that helps you grow instead of holding you back. The words you repeat internally eventually become the beliefs you live externally. You also strengthen your inner world by adopting the habit of pausing before reacting. People who react instantly are controlled by emotion. People who pause take control of the moment. In that small pause, you gain the ability to choose a better outcome. You gain space to think, to breathe, to respond with intention. And intention is what separates the wise from the impulsive. A strong inner world also requires emotional maturity, the ability to accept responsibility without drowning in guilt, and the ability to forgive without forgetting the lesson. Emotional maturity is what allows you to navigate relationships, challenges, opportunities, and setbacks without being thrown off course each time. It's understanding that your reactions shape your reality more than the events themselves. You strengthen your inner world through learning, reading, listening, observing. Every new idea becomes another tool you can use to build a better version of yourself. Jim Rohn used to say, if you want things to change, you have to change. And change doesn't happen in public. It begins privately, in the conversations you have with your own mind. A strong inner world creates consistency. You don't need applause to keep going. You don't depend on approval to stay committed. Your motivation isn't tied to external encouragement. You operate from a deeper place, a place built on standards, values, and vision. And when you live from that place, progress becomes natural. Growth becomes steady, and success becomes sustainable. People often ask, how do I stay strong when nobody believes in me? The answer is simple: believe in yourself quietly until the results speak loudly. Build the strength internally so that when the moment arrives, you're ready. Not scrambling, not pretending, but ready. Because you already did the work where it matters most. If you truly want to build yourself quietly, begin by fortifying the part of you no one sees. Strengthen your mind, discipline your emotions, elevate your standards, refine your thinking. When the inside becomes solid, the outside inevitably rises.